Hi, I'm Christine Parsons. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a recipe system in Google Sheets. We'll start completely from scratch with a blank spreadsheet and end up with a dynamic recipe viewer that lets you see your recipes, view them in a clean, printable layout, and filter them based on meal type, tags, or protein type. We'll cover how to use tables and name ranges, how to write filter formulas, how to link your data to a template view, and how to make your dropdowns only show filtered results using a hidden logic sheet. Whether you're new to Google Sheets or you just want a lightweight system that you can improve over time, this tutorial will show you how to do it step by step. All right, let's get started. When we open a new spreadsheet, the first thing we want to do is close the Gemini tab that appears by default. Next, let's give our sheet a title. Go up to the top left corner and double click where it says Untitled Spreadsheet. You'll see a blue outline appear around the title, and that's how you know it's editable. Go ahead and type your new title. I'm calling this one Recipes for now. Now let's set up our bottom tabs. Technically these are called sheets, but I have a habit of calling them tabs, even though Sheets calls them sheets. We'll start by naming our current tab. Right click the tab and click Rename, and I'll name this one Ingredients. Click the plus icon next to the tab to add a new one. I'll double click the name and change it to Recipes. Click the plus icon one more time to add one more sheet. Double click it and name this one Settings. Now we're ready to build our recipes table. Make sure you're on the Recipes tab and let's start adding columns for the data we want to see for each recipe. I'm starting with columns for name, image, instructions. We're going to skip ingredients for now, and I'll explain why later. Just leave it off for the moment. Next, I'm adding some sortable categories, a tag column, a meal column, a protein type column. Then I'll add columns for nutritional information, whatever I want to track. This part is sped up, so pause the video here if you need more time to add your headers. Now that our headers are in, we can start adding our first recipe. I have a recipe pulled up to copy from, so I'll just pop in the title first. For the image, select a cell and then go up to the top menu and click Insert Image into Cell. You'll see a pop-up with several options. There's a Google's Image tab, which is so convenient. I actually prefer it over Unsplash in Notion or Coda. But for now, we're just going to use the image from our recipe source. To get that image link, right-click the image and then select Copy Image Address. Now go back to the image pop-up in Sheets and select Insert Image by URL tab and paste the link. You should see the image appear in your cell. For the instructions, I'm also copy-pasting, but here's a trick. If you want to paste into the cell directly, the text might break into multiple rows, which we don't want. So double-click into the cell first and then paste the text. This will keep it all in one cell. To manage how the text displays, click the text wrapping icon in the toolbar. It looks like an arrow bouncing off of a wall. You'll see three options: the overflow, which is default, the wrap, and the clip. This is what we want, so the extra text stays hidden in the cell and doesn't spill out visually. Now let's set up a rating column using Google Sheets Smart Chips. Click into the cell in the column and type an @ symbol and start typing rating. You'll see a star icon with a rating appear. Now you can choose a 1 to 5 star rating for each recipe. The next three columns, tag, meal, and protein, are going to be drop-downs. This will help us filter and sort our recipes later. Let's jump over to the Settings tab and define the options for our drop-downs. Start by adding a header, tags, and list the categories you want to sort by. Things like quick, comforting, low carb, family favorite, whatever works for you. Now let's go back to the Recipes tab and click to the cell in the tag column and type @dropdown. Select New Dropdown and a menu will appear to the right. Under Criteria, change it from Dropdown to Dropdown from a range. Click the grid icon in the new field that appears. This will open the Select Data Range pop-up. go to the Settings tab and highlight the column of the tag options. The range input should autofill. If it says something like Settings B to B, change it to Settings B2 to B so it excludes the header. Click OK, and now the drop-down pulls directly from your Settings tab. Let's go back to Recipes and test it out, and you should see the options appear. The setup is way easier to maintain than entering drop-down values manually. For example, to add a new tag, just go to Settings and type Global on the next line. Back in Recipes, the drop-down will update automatically. Repeat this process for meal and protein type columns. I've sped up this part, so feel free to pause the video to fill in yours. And then I'm just going to add details for the nutritional information for the recipe. Alright, now that we have our basics down, it's time to talk about tables. To convert existing data into a table, we're going to highlight our data, right-click, and select Convert to Table. Now let's change the title of our table. Double-click where it says Table 1 at the top tab and rename it to Recipes. To add a new row to the table, just hover over the table until you see a plus icon appear on the left side. Click that and you've got a brand new row. To delete a row, click the row number to highlight it, and then right-click and choose Delete Row. But we're going to keep ours for now because I want to add another recipe. Now I'm going to add the details for this recipe. I'm going to speed this part up, so feel free to pause the video to add your own recipe. Alright, now I've run into a situation. I want this recipe to have multiple tags, but right now I can only select one from the drop-down. Luckily, the fix is super simple. We just right-click the drop-down cell, go to drop-down to open up the drop-down settings, scroll down until we see a checkbox with allow multiple selections, and then check that box. Alright, when we close it, we should be able to select as many tags as we want now. Now that we have our recipe sorted, it's time to talk about ingredients. Let's navigate over to our Ingredients tab. This time, instead of converting existing data into a table, we are going to start with a blank table. To do that, we need to type the @ symbol and start typing tables. When you see the table icon and the word table appear, click it. You'll see the table settings appear on the right, very similar to the drop-down menu we were working with earlier. Let's choose blank table from the options. Now go ahead and rename the table. Double-click where it says Table 1 and type Ingredients. Alright, next we're going to add the columns. We're going to add columns for name, quantity, amount, and recipe. To remove any columns you don't need, just right-click the column and select Delete Column from Table. Now let's connect our recipes column to our recipes table that we created earlier. Select the recipe column, right-click, choose drop-down, and you should see the drop-down menu appear to the right. You'll notice something cool here. In the Apply to Column field, instead of saying letter, like A, A, it's going to say Ingredients bracket Recipe. That's the power of tables. They let you reference columns by name, which makes it much cleaner and easier to manage. Now let's link to our recipes table. Under Criteria, change Dropdown to Dropdown from a range. Instead of manually highlighting a range of cells, we can just type Recipes, square bracket, name. And now we have our recipe names as drop-down options in the ingredients table. All that's left to do is to add your actual ingredients. This part is mostly done off camera because it's very dull, so if you're following along, be sure to pause the video to fill in your ingredients. Our ingredients are filled in, so now it's time to create a better way to view our recipes. Start by creating a new tab using the plus icon at the bottom. Name this one Recipe View. On this sheet, we're going to design a beautiful recipe template. We'll begin by using some general filler content to block out the layout, starting with the image. This next part is going to be time-lapsed because it's a lot of back and forth editing. Here's what you need to know when you want to style your own template. Background colors. Highlight the cells and use the fill tool in the toolbar. Text formatting. Use the toolbar options for font, size, bold, italic, strike through, and text color. Text alignment. The first button controls left, center, and right. The second button controls top, middle, bottom. Borders. Use the borders icon. On the right, you can set the line thickness, color, and choose which sides of the cells to apply it to. Grid lines. Go to View, Show, and then uncheck grid lines. Once the layout is in place, it's time to connect the template to the data. We'll start by turning the recipe title into a drop-down selector. Remove the existing title, type at dropdown, and select New Dropdown. Under Criteria, choose Dropdown from a range, and type Recipes, square bracket, name, square bracket. This gives us a list of all our recipe names to choose from. To display the matching image, we'll use a filter formula. In the image cell, enter filter, parentheses, recipe, square bracket, image, comma, recipe, square bracket, name equals this cell. Let's break that down. The first part, recipes image, tells Google Sheets which column to pull data from, in this case, the image column. The second part, recipe name equals D1, tells it which row to look at based on the recipe selection and the dropdown. Alright, now that that's cleared up, we can move on to our ratings column. Again, we're going to be using the filter formula. Filter, parentheses, recipes, square bracket, ratings, comma, recipes, square bracket, name, equals D1. Clicking the drop-down cell each time gets tedious, so let's give it a name we can reference easier. Since it's merged cells, we need to unmerge them first. Select the top left cell of the group and go to the name box, which is next to the formula bar, and rename it to Recipe Select. Then let's merge the cells back together. For the tag column, we're going to be using the same filter formula. Filter, recipe tags, comma, recipe name equals recipe select. If you're seeing an error here, it's likely because the dropdown used for this spacing in the template doesn't match the dropdown in the table. So there's two ways to fix it. One, we could just remove the dropdown rule completely and let the tags display as regular text. Or we can match the dropdown to the table's dropdown setup, which gives it a cleaner, more consistent look. To simplify the drop-down setup in the feature, let's convert the Settings tab into a table and name it Settings. Now, when setting drop-down criteria, we can just type Settings square bracket tags, and be sure to check Allow multiple selections. Once that's set up, go back and test it. Your image, rating, and tags should all update when the recipe drop-down changes. Next up, we'll bring in the instructions. Use the same filter formula structure. Filter, recipe instructions, comma, recipe name equals recipe select. You'll notice the formatting looks pretty rough at first. Let's clean it up a bit. First, we're going to move the formula one column over to add spacing under the border. Let's highlight this large block of cells that we have here and merge them. Align the text to the top, and then set the wrapping to wrap. And a little bit more formatting just to make sure it looks great. Ingredients is a little bit more involved because it is a separate table and we will be getting multiple rows. Before writing the formula, make sure your amount column is formatted to text. This prevents Google Sheets from auto-correcting values into dates or strange decimals. We'll work this formula off to the side at first, since we will need multiple cells to structure it. If you try to pull the entire ingredients table, it returns everything, which is a mess. We only want amount, measurements, and name in a readable format. Luckily, we can chain it together with a squiggly bracket and some ampersands. At the end, our formula looks like this. Filter, parentheses, squiggly bracket, ingredients amount, and text space, and ingredients measurements, and text space, and ingredients name, closing squiggly brackets, comma, ingredients recipe equals recipe select. Once it's working, let's copy and paste the formula into the spot we want it to be at. Let's take a moment to tweak the layout so everything sits nicely. Last step is the nutritional information. This one's easy. We use the same filter structure again, and this time I just copy pasted it into each field and updated the column name each time to make quick work of it. And that's it. Now our recipe viewer is fully linked with our database. We have our recipe database connected, but right now our dropdown shows every single recipe. Sometimes we want to filter down and only view recipes we're actually looking for. Let's fix that by building a simple filter system. First, we need some space at the top of our recipe view sheet. To make room, let's go to the bottom and grab a clean row, and then drag it all the way up to the top. Now we can right-click that clean row and choose Insert One Above. Do this a few times to create plenty of space. I'll add some borders around the filter area and adjust spacing by dragging another row above it for balance. Now I'm merging a group of cells for the filter title and formatting it the way I want. I'm planning to filter by tag, meal, and protein type. To start, I'll insert dropdown for the tag filter. Type @dropdown and open the dropdown settings. Change criteria to dropdown from a range. Set the range to settings, square bracket, tags, square bracket. Merge the next cell over, and we can actually see the selection. Repeat the process for meal and protein type. Let's create a new tab and call it Secret Filter. This is where we'll write the logic that filters recipes based on the drop-down selections. It works just like how we pulled data from our recipe view earlier. We'll use filter formula here and then connect it back to our drop-down. Start by giving this new list a title. Recipe drop-down filter. Next, we need to name our filter cells so they're easier to reference in formulas. Unmerge the drop-down cells for tag, meal, and protein, and give each one a name using the name box. Filter tag, filter meal, filter protein. Then go ahead and remerge those cells for visual consistency. Now for the filter logic. We'll start by writing a filter formula that finds recipes matching the selected tag. Initially, you'll probably see a #NA, and that's expected. Our dropdown is still empty after all. But when we select our tag, a secret filter page will display only the recipes that match. Let's update our main recipe select dropdown to pull from this filtered list instead of the main table. To do that, right-click the recipe title dropdown. Open dropdown settings. Click the grid icon to choose a range. Highlight the B column on the secret filter sheet. then manually update it to start at B2 to skip the header. Now when we return the dropdown, it only shows recipes that match our selected tag. But there's a problem. When we try a tag like kid-friendly, it doesn't return anything, even though we know it exists on a recipe that has multiple tags. That's because the equal sign only works for exact matches. If a recipe has multiple tags, it's not exact, and it won't match the filter. We need to fix this by using a formula called regex match. Let's remove our original filter formula. Instead, let's swap out the equal sign formula part to regex match recipe square bracket tags, comma, filter tag. Here's how it works. The first argument in the regex match is the text that we're searching inside of, and that's going to be the recipe tags. The second argument is the search term, or what we're looking for. In this case, is going to be whatever the value of filter tag is. This formula says, give me all the recipes where the tags contain this tag. Now we can return partial matches, so kid-friendly will match even if it's one of several tags. There's still one more issue. When we try to clear the dropdown, nothing appears. That's because empty cells are considered invalid input by default. To fix this, let's go back into our dropdown settings, open Advanced Options. Change the If the data is invalid setting from Reject the input to Show a warning. Now if you clear the dropdown, it will show all the recipes again. Much better. Let's add a recipe counter to show how many results we are returning. Merge two cells above the filter results. Use Count A formula to count how many recipes are listed in the secret filter column. Count A, parentheses, our column. But there's a small issue. If no recipes match, we get a hashtag NA in the filter list, and count A still counts that as 1. To fix this, let's wrap it in a filter to exclude NA results. Here's what the updated formula looks like. Count A, filter, our column, not is NA, and then our column again. Let's break that down. Our filter is telling the sheets, give me all the values that are not NA. And then our count A kicks in and counts how many valid entries are left. Let's make it more readable with concatenate. Before count A, we're going to put concatenate and open up our parentheses. After our original formula, let's put a comma and then some quotation marks, recipes, and close the parentheses. Now it reads something like 3 recipes. Nice and clear. You can style this however you'd like. Change the font, increase the size, make it bold, and then center in the box. Once the tag filter is working, we can repeat the process for meal type and protein type. Let's go back into our secret filter page and copy the regex formula. Add a comma after it and then paste it back in. This time, change tags to meals in both the recipe and the filter variables. Repeat the process for protein. You have a fully working dynamic drop-down system that filters your recipes by tag, meal type, and protein, plus a recipe counter that updates as you go. You've just built a powerful search layer on top of your recipe database. We're going to add one more important feature to our recipe viewer, a search bar that lets you type in a part of a recipe name and quickly filter the results. Let's get started. First, I'm going to resize the filter recipes title, making the text a little bit smaller so we have more space to work with. Next, we'll shift all of our filters, tag, meal type, protein, over to the left side of the row to make room for the search bar on the right. To do that, I'm using this shortcut, Control X to cut each section, and then Control V to paste it into the new location. Once everything is moved over, double check that the drop-downs are still working. And they are. Great. With the filter shifted left, I'm also going to adjust the position of the filter recipe's title so it's centered more evenly on the filters, just shifting it slightly to match the new layout. Now we'll build our search bar on the right hand side. First, I'm temporarily moving our results counter out of the way to make room. Again, using Ctrl X to cut, Ctrl V to paste. Next, I want the search bar to live in column F, but right now the columns are unevenly spaced. So I'm going to adjust the column widths to create a little bit more balance and breathing room for the search input area. I am merging cells F2, F3, and in them I'm typing a short title for the section. Something like search recipes. And in cell F5, 2 rows below, that's where we'll type our search terms. To give the search bar a little bit of flair, I'm going to go to the cell to the left of the input, which is cell E5, and add the search icon. To do that, I go to the top menu and choose Insert Image into Cell. Then I search for a search icon in the Google Images tab. I found one I like, so let's insert it into the cell. Once it appears, I align the image to the right side of the cell so it fits snugly next to the input box. Now let's style the search input itself. I'm experimenting with how it looks when I highlight the background to match the dropdowns instead of using borders. I like the soft, clean look that matches the rest of our filter area, so let's keep it. Next, I move the results counter back into place and tidy up any borders that may have been broken while we rearrange things. Before we build the logic, let's test the layout by typing in a value we know should return results. The cell seems to have inherited some formatting I don't want, like size and the font, so I'm going to take a moment to fix that. Now I'll go into the name box at the top left next to the formula bar and give our search bar a cell name. This will make it easier to reference in formulas later. I'm calling it search bar. No spaces, just one word. Let's jump over to the secret filter tab where our filtering logic lives. Scroll to the end of the existing formula that filters by tag, meal type, and protein. We're going to add one more condition to the formula. To do that, let's copy that last line, which is the regex match formula, starting with a comma before it. Paste it right at the end of the current formula. Then make two small changes. Change recipe's protein type to recipe's name, and replace the filter variable from filter protein to search bar. So that final part of the formula now checks whether the recipe name contains the text in the search bar. Once we press enter, we see it's working. The recipe drop-down filter now updates and shows only the matching recipes. Let's test it out a bit. Try changing the text in the search bar and you'll see results change instantly. Then test it alongside other filters. Select a tag or meal type and combine it with search. It all works beautifully. The filter and the search bar work together to narrow your results exactly how you need it. And with that, you now have a fully functioning search and filter system on top of your recipe viewer. Now that we've added filters in a search, I want to take it one step further and let users filter recipes based on nutritional values, like calories or carbs. To start, I'm going to move our filter and search box to the right of the sheet, just to make more room and improve the layout. I block out some space using extra rows and columns, then use Ctrl X and Ctrl Z to move everything over. As I go, I merge cells and adjust the column widths. Extra rows and columns are a really simple way to space things out visually in a spreadsheet, and they help make things feel clean and organized. With that moved, I'm going to copy the search recipes title and rename it to nutritional search. Under that, I'm adding a drop-down to pick the type of nutritional data, like calories or carbs, two input boxes for minimum and maximum values. It takes me a minute to get the layout figured out, but I end up inserting a column between the minimum and maximum boxes for spacing, and then I highlight the input fields to match the other input fields. I then move the results counter down to the bottom of the sort and filter section and fix the borders, and then I highlight the counter section to make the area pop. Next, I clean up the top of the sheet by deleting all of the unused rows that we no longer need. Let's set up this new dropdown. First, I add a new column in the settings table for nutritional filter options. These values need to match the exact names on the columns in the recipe table. So to make sure I get it right, I copy the nutritional column headers into the sheet temporarily, use them as a reference, and then I delete the columns when I'm done. Back in the filter section, I convert that placeholder cell into a real dropdown by opening the dropdown settings, choosing dropdown from a range, and pointing it to settings nutrish. Now I name each of my input cells for easy referencing in a formula. The dropdown is called nut search. The min value is called search min. The max value is called search max. Now let's talk about the formulas that power all of this. It's a little more complex, so I'm going to skip ahead to the completed version and break it down one step at a time. You can make formulas easier to read by splitting them across multiple lines. On Windows, press Ctrl Enter. On Mac, press Command Enter. Now let's unpack what this formula does. We want to filter recipes based on a column selected in the dropdown, but that dropdown just gives us a piece of text, like calories or carbs. Spreadsheets don't know how to turn that into a column reference automatically. So we combine two functions, match and index. First, match. Match is used to find the position of something in a list. It's like saying, in this list of column headers, which one matches the text in my dropdown? Here's how it works. The first argument is the value you're looking for, in this case, nut search. The second argument is the range you're searching in. We use recipes #headers. The third argument is how to match it. We use 0 because the headers aren't sorted, and we want an exact match. Next, index. Index is how we actually return the data from that column. It has 3 arguments. The full table, in our case, recipes. A row offset. We use 0 to return all of the rows. And a column number, which we get from that match function. So together, this formula means from the recipes table, return all of the rows in the column that match the text from the dropdown. The last piece of this formula is handling the maximum value. We want the filter to still work even if someone leaves the maximum field blank. So we use an if statement. If search max equals a blank string, 9999999, which is a really high number, search max. What this means. If the max is blank, pretend that the max is 99 million. If it's not blank, use whatever number the user typed in search max. That way, the filter will still return results even if you only fill the minimum value. Let's test it out. And it works. Now we can filter recipes on any nutritional column just by choosing the type and setting a range. It's a flexible, dynamic system, and it makes our spreadsheet one step closer to a real meal planning app. We did it. We made a recipe book. It's very basic. We can see our recipes, we can view them in a clean, printable layout, and we can even filter and sort them. But it's not over yet. In our next video, we're going to make a data entry form using app scripts, and it's going to make uploading those recipes a lot easier. I hope to see you then.